Welcome once again. I'm Mayor Mike, and in today's Alder Spotlight, we have our District 3 Alderperson, Cindy Nebel. Welcome, Cindy.
Welcome, Mayor Mike.
So, Cindy, tell us a little bit about you. Who is Cindy Nebel? What kind of history do you have, and what brought you to becoming an alderperson?
Sure. Lots of different reasons, but I lived in Stevens Point. I was born here. My dad worked for Century, so that means you move a lot. And so by the age of 3, my 7 brothers and sisters and my parents, we moved many different places. Back in when I was a teenager, middle of my sophomore year, we were at that time living in Rockford, Illinois, and got the news that we were moving once again. And I said, oh, middle of my sophomore year, my sister's was the middle of her senior year, so it was quite an uproar. But we moved to Stevens Point. We lived in Plover at the time, and I went to school, PJ's in the beginning, and then went over to Spash that same year. Got to say that at first I was really negative about coming here, but I can't believe how much I grew to just appreciate and love this town. And when my parents decided they were moving once again, this time only just to Eau Claire, I said, I'm not leaving this time, I'm staying. So I think they lost a kid each time they moved. It was kind of hard for my mom, I think.
Kind of like
maybe
a trail
not
of
for my dad.
breadcrumbs, except
yeah,
there
really,
was,
you could always go back and see everybody. But so I said, I'm staying here, and I went here and went to school, and I only went for about a year and a half here to school at the university, but graduated from Spash. But I did go back to school. Mary was talking about her, McComb was talking about her midlife crisis, and I kind of had one of those too, where I thought, geez, what do I really want to do? And I thought, I'm going back to school and finishing. So I did. And I lived right near the campus, so that was perfect timing to go back. So I had 2 kids, but I was in my 50s, and I thought it was perfect. So I went back to college and got my teaching degree. Living in Stevens Point, I met my husband here. He went to college here. I met him when he was teaching. He taught at Plover Whiting for his whole career. That's where I met him as an assistant, and decided that, I think I want to go back and I want to be a teacher. So I finally made a decision, and after a few years, after having a couple kids, I decided to go back. We bought our first house right the first year we got married, and it's right on a block away from campus. So quite an interesting spot. But very, very neat because we had such a nice mix of people there. It was an interesting neighborhood. You can never get old there because you are living among students and they keep you young. And we had a lot of elderly in our neighborhood too, and families. And we found ourselves becoming part of where you're the caretakers for some of the older people that lived in the neighborhood because they became family. And the college students we had that lived there became our babysitters, and we went to weddings for a lot of these kids later on, years later. So coming to Stevens Point and coming back here probably was the most best thing that could ever happen for me anyway.
I've always been impressed, and that's been a philosophy of mine. I grew up in the same neighborhood that I live in now. You go away and move out for college, and I went to school here in Point too, but I've always known my neighbors. We have always gotten along very well with my neighbors, and not just the people that live right next to me, down the block. It's
really, not just across the street.
Right. The whole city of Stevens Point is one giant neighborhood filled with a bunch of other little neighborhoods. And that's one thing that's always stuck with me. People who live in different cities or different parts of the country talk to me about the fact that the guy on the other side of the fence, they've never met, they don't know anything about him, and that's completely foreign to me. I don't understand how you can live next door to somebody and not know who it is.
It is very strange to think of that, and I think about how often we moved and how hard it was always going into a new neighborhood, new families, and new schools, and so trying to become part of that, and I think that's what made me be a person that wanted to stay in one place, wanted to have that continuity and have neighbors, and to really appreciate that the most. I think it's also helped me with having students that live near us that I know what it's like to be the new kid on the block, as they say. And so it made me want to be that person that could help out, and just that caretaker kind of personality I have anyway. So it just kind of went together, that neighborhood. It's been really interesting.
I know too that you and Armin were instrumental and still are very much active in the Old Main Neighborhood Association. Talk a little bit about that and how that got started, and just to take a minute or so.
Sure. The Old Main Neighborhood Association came about. We had already been doing a lot of things in our neighborhood with our neighbors within that couple blocks, doing get-togethers and doing things with our students that lived near us to try to help out when they didn't know what ordinances there were, things like that, and moving if they needed something, just being that kind of neighbor. That's a neighbor, I think, is what you should be. Being able to help each other out. You know, if they need something, you see it, you just say, hey, you want to borrow this or a rake, whatever it is. One of the things about became the Old Main Neighborhood Association came about when the university came up with a new master plan, and I think that was 2008. And so that was the opportunity for something more structured, and came about that because of some houses that were going to be taken on the same Briggs Street. One side that the university were going to be taking where they could buy them as they came up for sale, and then they were going to be when they can expand for their master plans. I think it's a positive in a lot of ways because it made people move together and form a neighborhood association, because you can't do much about something if you're not ahead of it, or you're not already formed, or have a group that's going to get the talks going and discuss it. That led us to having more of a relationship with the university and administrators, so that we could be part of it instead of just things happening to us.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we've tried to do in the city, at least under my administration, is try and get everybody involved early on, so we can get those thoughts and ideas out there and incorporate it into whatever project it happens to be.
I think that's one of the things I enjoy the most about being on the council, is that is so true, and that uniform, all the different departments and how everybody works together and how everybody has the same passion. It doesn't mean that we're all going to agree on things, but we all have the same very strong passions about this
town. Usually the end goal is the same.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how we get there. So that leads me to my next question. What made you decide that, hey, I think being an alderperson would be a good idea?
Well, I never really wanted to do it. I'm going to say that very honestly. I've been asked that years before. We had so many good alders before I decided to do this. George Hansen, wonderful man. George, miss him. He was very, very wonderful for our neighborhood. We had so many different people. I'm going to go blank for a second, but why can't I think of his name down at the end of the street?
That's okay.
Lots of different people that I felt, I want to say McNamara, but it's not.
O'Meara. Michael
O'Meara. He very, very knowledgeable. He knows a lot, and he worked for I think it was the state
Department of Transportation.
So he had a lot of information. And I always thought, well, I can't do this because I need to be someone that has more of that kind of information background. But as time went on, and we had another really good person that had been running, so I thought, good, I don't need to throw my hat in there. Garrett Ryan, and he was doing a wonderful job, and younger and really outgoing and stuff, and he's moving. So he came to me and said, I'm moving, and I just think you should be looking at maybe running, because you're already doing a lot of the same things within your neighborhood association.
Sure.
So that's why I decided, okay, I'm going to do it, because it's my turn.
Yeah.
Somebody has to take that stand and say, yeah, it's not going to be easy. And that's why I said I really wasn't interested, because I was running this. I was a president for the Old Main Neighborhood Association at the time, so I knew I couldn't do both. But they really do. You need to have somebody that's going to be in there and learn more. And that's the thing that going for this has taught me so much more, that it just makes you realize that all the questions and the complaints that you hear, and that you even yourself have made, that there's always another reason behind it. And to be educated enough to be able to pass that on to other people, I think it calms people when they know and they understand where it's coming from, why it's this way. Because if you don't know, you're just mad.
And I find that true a lot, that just explaining to people how the process works and why the decision was made often makes them a lot more comfortable with what's going on. Yeah. They just want to know, and I think that's why, again, we've tried as a council to get people more involved and offer more opportunities, this being one of them. This is the first time ever that we have done alder spotlights, letting people introduce themselves to their alders, and radio, TV, our social media. We've got our Stevens Point app. But getting back to the 3rd District, as an alderperson, what are some of the goals that you want to see in the 3rd District? And if you want to take a couple extra minutes or so, talk about what your goals are for the city.
Well, my main goal for the 3rd District is really the neighborhoods and for the city. I'm very strong component about how important it is to have strong neighborhoods, and our city is very lucky. We have so many great amenities. This city has great parks, it has great schools, it has the university, has great businesses that have really grown like centuries and has given back to this city. But I've seen our neighborhoods start to just lose their luster. And they're older. They're a lot older homes. And when we bought, our house was about 120 years old. Had to have a lot of different things done to it, and we learned as we did it, and boy did we learn. Old house is never, my husband would always say to me, don't ever say, oh, that's easy. That's a 4-letter word to him, easy. Right. Because it won't be. And we learned that. But that's why you end up really investing, like you do into your house, you invest into the people and into the neighborhood and the city itself, because this is what makes this town so wonderful. It is these people here. So my goal is to make it stronger as I can and try to build up the neighborhoods so that we can have the mix of rentals and homeowners, but have everybody respecting each other and building them up so that the equity in someone's house doesn't go lower because of someone else's property. Not that we're gated by any means, what I want to be, but this town has great character, and I don't want us to be cookie cutter. Yeah, so I'm hoping that's it. And our whole town for the city, I'm really hoping that we develop in smart ways and make it a very strong town. And I think it's strong to begin with. I think it's a wonderful town. And I think anybody that comes here has said that. Students, very much so. And my other goal in my neighborhood district is to be an advocate for the students as well as with the homeowners. Good,
good. Yeah, and it's funny you say that because that's really one of our goals as a community is to grow. We want to focus not just on one section, right, say inner downtown area. We want to keep that growth going as well as the expansion growth, but we need to do it smart, and we want to do it slow and steady rather than just big booms here and there and hope that something sticks.
And it's a balancing act.
It is a very big balancing act.
Our budgeting, it's gotten harder and harder. So we definitely have a hard job, and I commend you and the other alders, and especially your department heads. You've got wonderful people working in this city, and they know what they're doing, and they also listen.
And they do. And we all know and understand that we are on the same team. Yep. We can disagree, but we're still on the same team. Yep. And our goal is to do the best for the city of Stevens Point and do the most good for the most people.
Right, not just for one district or for anything one, it's all. Right. And that's one of the best feelings and one of the paybacks that is such a benefit that going in and doing this as an alder I would never have known. And I'm very appreciative of having this opportunity to get to know what this city's really about and understand how much they do care.
Well, good. So, Cindy, 3rd District, give our listeners and viewers an idea of how they can get in touch with you. Sure. If they need to know something about the 3rd District, sure, how can they get in touch with you?
Anytime. First of all, even if you couldn't remember my name and you want to remember Old Main Neighborhood Association, you can always go through there. We have a Facebook page, OMNA, Old Main Neighborhood Association. We also have a website. But there's also the city website, which I'm on, and then my home phone number is open and is on the website also, and it's 715-341-1141. So it's our main number, and messages I get back to people, and emails. I love to hear from people.
Okay, and the email address, as it is for all alders, is, in your case, District 3 at stevenspoint.com. So it's whatever district number you're in, district that number at stevenspoint.com, and that will get to your alderperson for that particular district. Right. Well, thank you, Cindy, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Mayor Mike.
We have been talking with Cindy Nebel, who is the 3rd District alderperson, and this has been Alder Spotlight.